Hello and welcome back to the KCC channel. I'm Rob and I hope you are having a wonderful day today. Today I have 4 stories for you from the MaliciousCompliance subreddit. Let's jump right in. This story comes to us from Reddit 7685. The accidental malicious compliance against world expert. This occurred back in the 70s, and before I start, I want to emphasize, I was never stupid enough and will never be stupid enough to use my hidden talent. Background: I was taking an elective criminal forensic CSI stuff night course at a local community college. The best part about taking this course was the instructor, which meant an in-depth tour at the US Criminal Forensic Lab, where he worked as the question document examiner, handwriting analysis, signature matching, etc. Also, since computers were barely introduced into forensics at this time, all handwriting analysis and matching was done by hand, and this instructor was one of, if not the best in the world. The MaliciousCompliance as good as I remember. It was a great course studying many facets of criminal forensics and taking the amazing lab tour. As the course was coming to the end, the question document facet approached, the instructor's specialty. At the end of the class, just before it started, the instructor wrote a paragraph on the board, and we each had 2 sheets of blank, lined paper. He told us to write the paragraph, only the paragraph, any way we want on one sheet, and then again on the other sheet, trying to disguise our handwriting. You are committing forgery. The instructor left and we all started writing. When done, one student, not me, collected all the sheets, mixed them up, and took them to the instructor. We all looked forward to the next class where the instructor would present matched sheets, then explain to us why our forgery attempts failed, and how he would testify in court to prove it. Because I wanted to go home, I made it easy on myself. For my forgery attempt, I wrote the paragraph in print on one sheet and in cursive on the other sheet, even though we were told that it is a failed way to disguise handwriting. Now, for a little background on my handwriting, it's bad. I mean really bad. And I have held pencils and pens wrong since I learned to write. The easiest way to explain it is, I write with a closed fist, right-handed. In elementary school, my parents hired a tutor to try to teach me how to write again from scratch, including putting plastic things on pencils to make my preferred grip uncomfortable. It failed miserably. In high school, I had a teacher tell me I would amount to nothing because I had issues writing legibly. Basically, my print is somewhat legible and my cursive, good luck. But that should make no difference. Now, back to the story. At the beginning of the next class, the normal, happy-go-lucky instructor looked very upset as he walked in. The first words out of his mouth was if anyone played a practical joke on him, he did not appreciate it. The whole class, 15 students, looked at each other totally confused. The instructor then again tried to get someone to confess, but we all continued to look confused. The instructor calmed down a little and decided to continue with the class as he normally would have done so. From the stack of papers he was handed at the end of the last class, he picked out the top 2 sheets and said in court speak how he deduced that the same person wrote both paragraphs. Then, a student would admit it was their failed forgery attempt, and the instructor would continue with the next 2 sheets. When there were just 2 sheets left, the instructor lifted them up for all the class to see. Looking straight at me, he said he could not testify in court, saying the same person wrote both paragraphs. With a scared look on my face, I said both sheets were mine, and I wrote both paragraphs. So, in front of the instructor and whole class, I again wrote the paragraph, once in print and once in cursive. The instructor walked away shaking his head and mumbling something like he had never seen this before. After that, the instructor looked at and spoke to me differently as my classmates created some obvious nicknames for me. The Forger. I got an A in the class and was very happy when it ended. Trying to anticipate some questions, exactly why I could do this, I have no idea. I figured if I was in school today, I would be diagnosed with some minor learning disability. No, I cannot demonstrate this now. I have not written in cursive in 40+ years, and too old to relearn. Cursive, Think loopy letters all connected together, which thankfully is being forgotten. I did make a new account for this post. In the 80s, I found a career that matched my handwriting skills: computers. OP added an edit down at the bottom. It says, "I saw some debate on whether this is an actual malicious compliance. I thought it was in the realm, but if not, thanks to the admins for letting it stay up, even if I unintentionally strayed from the definition." Jumping down to the comment section on this one, there's one from a user called Squirreltail. It says, "I had my checkbook stolen way back in 95 and was able to prove the signature wasn't mine because it was actually readable. Bastards wrote $300 of bad checks on a $100 account. I needed that money for foods." I remember as a kid looking at my parents' writing. My mother's writing was the neatest print you had ever seen, although I don't think I ever saw her do cursive. She was a teacher and her printing was absolutely perfect and still is to this day, and she's now in her mid-70s. My dad, on the other hand, if you can read that chicken scratch, you're a better person than me, because it is just unreadable. Which is really surprising to me because he was a business executive for many years, back before computers were really all over the place. So he would have done a lot of physically writing memos to other people in that business. It's amazing that anything got done there under his instruction. This story comes to us from Eldon42. Boss applies policy, employee gets mad, CEO rips employee a new one. Back in the early 2000s, I was working for a local council in New Zealand. If you're not aware, New Zealand has a central government and a series of local areas around cities or rural boundaries, each run by an elected mayor and council. The day-to-day business is, of course, done by employees in a typical business structure. One of the things about this is that all computer systems are regarded as being owned by the council, and kinda sorta by the populace. If a member of the public wants to see what's on the computers, they can make a request under the Official Information Act and see pretty much anything except private data. Private data being defined by the Privacy Act as basically names, addresses, birth dates, phone numbers, etc. Also, working in the council offices was a small business that had an exclusive contract with the council. This group handled the more physical aspects of the council systems: maintenance of roads, sewer and water systems, etc. If the council said, "We need a new pipe there," this small business made it happen. Thing is, the small business leased, this is important, their computers from the council. The small IT team, 3 people including me, built and supplied those machines. We owned the software that was on them, and they were connected to the internal council network. This meant they were subject to the same local government and council policies as the rest of us. Periodically, we in IT would clean out large files, early 2000s when storage was expensive, and we were limited due to budget, etc. Now, the staff were fully aware of this and knew to keep personal files to a minimum. If we, during a purge, found a large personal file, we could delete them at our discretion. During this time, we found some videos on an SB employee's machine. It was adult material, and not the nice kind of adult material either. The words fecal and mouth apply. Ugh. Because this violated council policy in oh so many ways, we deleted it quietly. The employee in question complained, claiming we had removed personal files. I never saw the videos happily, but my understanding is that he wasn't in them. They were stuff he had downloaded. We pointed at the policy. He went to the CEO and complained. The CEO came to us. My boss had figured this might happen. The employee in question was an interesting guy, and showed the CEO one of the videos, which was on the backups just in case we deleted something we shouldn't and had to restore it. We were good enough at our jobs that we never had to do that, but better safe than sorry. I wasn't there when it happened, but by all accounts, the CEO hauled the employee and the employee's boss of the SB, to an out-of-hearing location and ripped them a new one. The only reason the employee wasn't fired was because he technically worked for the SB and not the council. FYI, we would regularly block adult material sites, But being the early 2000s, new ones popped up all the time. Unless an employee tried to access them, we probably didn't know they existed. It's not that we were prudes, it's just that most staff weren't stupid enough to browse that stuff at work. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, there's one from a user called MHKOHNE. I'm not going to try and pronounce that. It says, honestly, anyone dumb enough to complain about their adult material being deleted from a work computer should probably lose their job on the basis of being a freaking idiot. Yep, I completely understand that one. I worked at a company that leased out computers to people, and let me tell you, some of the stuff that came back on those computers, don't even want to think about that. One in particular led to an investigation where the guy had all of his electronic devices taken away. That's something I will never be able to unsee, unfortunately. One thing dealing with computers and people who use them has taught me though is you never really know who you're dealing with, because some of the things we found on these computers, you just wouldn't think that that nice person who had that computer would be into that kind of freaky shit. This story comes to us from La Croissant. You want me to speedrun the game so you have someone to talk to? Fine. Originally posted on r/pettyrevenge, but then I realized it fit here too. I, 25 female, have a friend, 25, who's been wanting me to play Breath of the Wild for years now. It's not that I'm not interested in playing, heck, I bought the game ages ago, I've just been more invested in other things. After 5 or so years, I finally cracked down to play and absolutely love it. My friend is equally excited and can't wait for me to get to their favorite parts. No, literally, they can't wait. Almost daily, I'm hounded with DMs, asking how I like the game. Did I meet A yet? Have I done B yet? Have I finished C Quest? Why is it taking so long for me to finish C Quest? I prefer taking things on my own time. With a game of this scale, I want to take my sweet time exploring and finding things as I go. I feel like I'm progressing the plot at a decent pace, 50 hours into a game that other people have spent 300 on, and I'm doing fun side quests. Also, I have other hobbies and I've been playing the game along with the other things going on in my life. I've told them as much and they're not very happy about it. At first, they were supportive, if not a little pushy for me to play the game. When I'd talk about certain plot points and gameplay that I enjoyed, they'd brush off my gushing and say things along the lines of, "Oh, you haven't seen anything yet, you're not ready, keep going." As I juggled between the game's 2 main missions, they pushed me to do one over the other because it's where the good stuff happens. Despite me saying multiple times that I wanted to go at my own pace and do both missions together, they hounded me with more messages about how I wasn't playing right, and I need plot. I talked to them about it probably dozens of times, and they explained that they were so pushy because they needed someone else to talk about the game to. No, they wouldn't stop hounding me. I needed to keep going. For them, for our friendship. I'd thank them later. Speedrun. So I thought, to heck with it. They want me to speedrun? Then I'll speedrun. I used guides and read up things to finish the game as quickly as I could. I honestly have no clue what I did or how I finished, but I did. I eventually sent them a screen cap of my finished game file and gave them my honest opinion. I hated it. There was no build up to anything. I didn't know any character well enough to be invested in their struggles, and the puzzles ranged from stupidly easy to unnecessarily complicated. That part of the game that they couldn't wait for me to find skipped over the dialogue. It wasn't worth the extra time. After all, I needed to finish the game as soon as possible, right? Needless to say, we're not friends anymore. Now that I've returned to my original save file and am playing how I want, I can say that Breath of the Wild is one of the best games I've played. Since I skipped over so much for the sake of being petty, a lot of things still feel like new. I have no shortage of other friends to talk about the game with, and thankfully, these ones encourage me to take my time. They can't wait for me to get to their favorite parts. But not literally. They'll wait however long it takes me. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, there's one from a user called LSP4Brad. It says, BOTW is probably my favorite game of all time, and I think it was specifically designed to be played slowly. You're supposed to discover things by accident and make mistakes and try again. Glad you are getting to enjoy the game as it was intended. I completely understand this one. There's some games that I started playing a lot later than my friends. They already had a couple hundred hours in, and then I got into it, and you feel pressured to get to the level that they're at as quickly as possible so you can actually play the games together. But my friends were never really pushy about it. It was just my feeling that I needed to catch up. It had nothing to do with them. I couldn't imagine being pushed by my friends to get to their level, to do things at a pace that was good for them and not good for me. It sounds like that person wouldn't really be a friend anymore, so I can understand why OP ditched that friend and moved on their own. And I'm glad they found other people playing the game that think that it's great that OP wants to go at their own pace. This story comes to us from HuffPuff92. Buy a new one or go home. I used to work at Sonic as a car hop. I usually worked 4 to 5 to close. One day, I was cleaning up all the drinks the day shift left around, and I found a can of Monster. I grabbed it and walked around and asked everybody who was working. The manager, Robert, like normal, was talking to his girlfriend on the phone, assuming based off of all the adult talk. When I asked if it was his, he looked right at me, shook his head, and turned away without saying anything. After I finished asking everybody else, I dumped it out and threw it away. 30 to 45 minutes later, he comes up front and went to throw away his trash and seen it in the trash. He was livid, started screaming, grabbing it out of the trash, and started shoving it in people's face, asking if they threw it away. I told him they didn't, I did. He cornered me against the wall and screamed in my face that I was going to leave and go buy him a new one. Two things, the Monster was probably half full, if that, and I hate being yelled at. And I asked him. We got into this huge fight about it, him demanding I replace it, me telling him to F off. This went on for 2 hours. It was slow because it was winter, so he sent everybody else home. He was cooking. Finally, he told me I was either going to go buy a new one or I was going to go home. It was 7 at this point. We closed at midnight. I grabbed my stuff and went and clocked out. He said if I didn't go get him a new drink, I was fired. I said, okay, see you never. Not even 5 minutes after I left, the GM, Jeremy, called me asking why I left. So I told him what happened. He said the other manager can't fire me as only the GM can, and asked me to go back and finish the shift. I told him that I couldn't do that with Robert yelling in my face like that I'd go back tomorrow. So Robert was effed the rest of the night. Nobody else, not even Jeremy, would come in. He had to cook and run orders for 5 hours by himself. Pissed a lot of customers off. And when I went in the next night, he asked why I was back since he fired me, and it was a joy to tell him he couldn't do that. He held a grudge for 3 whole months. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, there's one from a user called Prof1959. It says, can't believe the GM didn't have a chat with Robert about it, saving you the months of grudges, but okay. OP responded to this one and said, laugh out loud, GM was very non-confrontational. He had me on video running out of the building, my ex chasing me while trying to button up his pants, and my best friend and another car hop following us. We all worked there, and I came up to surprise them one night they were closing, and I was the one surprised by them having relations in the walk-in. Jeremy asked me what happened a few days later and was very awkward about it. Said he could say something to them if I wanted him to, but he really preferred not to. Okay, my question here is, what good is a GM that's non-confrontational? I mean, that's kind of part of the definition of that job. The GM has to deal with things that kind of require confrontation. Both this GM and the manager just seem like they might have gotten promoted because, you know, they were there for a really long time. but they don't really have the skills they need to, do the jobs that they were promoted into. Unfortunately, that happens in a lot of companies. Check out all 4 OPs linked in the description down below. I thank you for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.